Imagine waking up as a goblin and later becoming so overpowered that Thanos would snap and you would still be around. Well, you don't have to imagine, just watch the video. The series owner of these lips is getting stabbed like he touched his killer's baby inappropriately. His killer calls him Tomokui Kanata, and die he did. The dude opens his eyes sometime later and almost shuts it after seeing the hideous old geezer. He begins to wonder what's going on, but soon discovers that the old ugly goblin isn't just ugly but an elder. At that moment, Tomokui Kanata becomes Gobru and gets force-fed a maggot. By day 2, Gobru realizes he's just one of the many green babies that had the misfortune to be born. This helps him confirm that he was reincarnated as a helpless baby goblin. By day 3, Gobru realizes goblins grow faster than most babies and woke up with a makeover. He was 4 times his size and now could talk. Instead of feeling sorry for himself like you do on a daily basis, yes, you, he resolves to become the greatest ugly thing to walk the earth. By day 4, Gramps announces that he's giving them their last supper and that no Jesus will multiply it. He says that he is done taking care of them and they need to make their own way in the world. It's a good look at how different the world is from his. Another goblin called Gobkichi followed him outside and they decide to team up to use Gobkichi's size to hunt their meals. It's unfortunate that he is as stupid as a bag of rocks, so Gobru makes him chase a unicorn rabbit type thing while he jumps from tree to tree to kill it with a stick. The strategy is extremely effective for hunting, so Gobru is quite pleased with himself. As he brags about their win, Gobkichi almost digs into the meal. The hero slaps him silly with his rod to teach him who's in charge. After giving him a good dose of DV, Gobru prepares the unicorn rabbit and breaks off its horn to use as a weapon. As he holds the item, he gets a notification within his head. However, he can't make sense of it. The Elder never gave a tutorial of this world, so he's just gonna have to figure it out on his own. Afterwards, he shares the meal with Gobkichi and he eats it as he ugly cries, which, let's face it, it's the only way he can cry. By day 5, they repeat the chase and kill routine, but Gobru kills another rabbit with the horn. This time, he receives another notification increasing his creature horn skill. Unfortunately, Gobru is still not quite sure what the notifications are supposed to mean. As they feast, he stands among them as they feed on his generosity, the hero realizing that he wasn't that nice in his previous life and wonders if the show producers know what they're doing by reincarnating him as a more generous life form. After the feast and everyone has been reduced into a meat coma for the night, Gobru attempts to have himself a nap. However, he receives another notification that he has exceeded the level requirement for a hobgoblin and would be evolving shortly. With sleepy eyes, he accepts it and rolls over to continue sleeping. On the morning of the 14th day, Gobru wakes with his head full of hair and an unfortunately cuter face. He realizes, as the goblins brawl it out in a flurry of punches, Gobru realizes that Gobkichi has definitely increased in strength. He also realizes that Gobkichi lacks the necessary technique to beat him in a fair fight. Gobru dodges a punch from Gobkichi and sweeps his legs out from under him as Gobkichi lands on his back. Gobkichi admits defeat and praises his friend for a good fight. Gobru also praises his friend's strength and comments that he is much stronger than any of his brothers or sisters. Afterwards, Gobru senses danger from a pack of wolves howling in the distance and however, Gobru does not mind as long as he continues to achieve his goal of gaining more strength. On the 17th day, Gobru discovers that all the human women in the storage area had taken their lives by drinking poison. They had realized that no one was coming to save them from being slaves, and who were made to produce babies for the goblins. Gobru alerts Gobji of the incident, and they both burn the corpses as a memorial. By day 23, Gobru begins the grueling training process of the Goblin Pack to turn the bunch of weaklings into something useful. He starts with the goblins running laps to increase their strength and hunting abilities. He's surprised when he sees some goblin intruders in the distance approaching. Gobru is cautious of the intruders and approaches with the group ready for battle with swords drawn. Gobji, the elder goblin, rushes to the scene to inform our hero that this bunch of intruders are in fact the fathers of the current pack of goblins. They are known as raiders, and they are returning home from a recent adventure with their spoils. Gobji is delighted with the haul of supplies the raiders have returned home with, even more so as they arrived with a bunch of human women, all so they can use them as breeders for the baby goblins. Goblin DNA is so strong that even when mixed with other species, goblin babies are still produced. While Gobru can appreciate the instinct to reproduce, this doesn't sit right with him and he needs to do something about it. Gobru approaches the biggest hobgoblin of the older generation called Hobkin, asking to oversee the women. Gobkin thinks this little upstart wants all the women for himself and becomes enraged. As Gobru is not one to back down from a fight, tensions between the goblin generations begin to escalate. Gobru gets pulled by the collar, and both generations of goblins pull out their weapons to fight. But before a fight breaks out, two new hobgoblins appear, called Hubsato and Hobse. They begin by calming the crowd and voice how they prefer if the two generations would not fight each other. Instead, Hubsato suggests that Gabru and Hobkin each fight each other to settle their own squabble and not get the whole group involved. The winner will become the village leader, however some rules are laid out regarding the fight. It is decreed that no weapons will be used so that no one will die. Our hero ends things soon enough by using his spider silk ability and then publicly declares himself the leader of the village. After the leadership fight, our hero visits the captured women in the storage area and reassures them. He tells them that they'll be set free and asks them for their human knowledge in return. It turns out that they were abducted from a group of travelers, and all the women sob as they share their story. By the 28th day, the girls had warmed up to Gabru, not knowing he was feeding them because he liked them thick. He discovers that amongst them is an appraiser, 2 cooks, an alchemist, and a rookie warrior, respectively. For the next few days, he focuses on training the other goblins, and on the 31st day, after Gabru and Gobkichi finish sparring, some goblins led by Hobkin plan to have a good time with the human ladies. Luckily, the hero wakes up in time to beat their perverted asses to a pulp. He also apologizes to the rookie warrior. She begins to weep into his chest. Just then, the others wake up and Gobkichi gets instructed to drag the culprits outside for a public display of torture. Gabru proceeds to tie Hobkin upside down and beat him till a pool of blood forms on the floor. This makes the message loud and clear that he's not to be messed with, and yeah, Hobkin dies before daybreak. It's day 32, and frankly, I am tired of counting the days. The original group fight off a tri-horn horse. Gibme tries shooting it with an arrow, but it just bounces off the hide of the beast. Gabru then holds it down with his silk threads, making room for him and Gobkichi to cut its head off together. Gabru feeds on it as usual, which gives him another set of multiple abilities, but this time, the triple thrust stands out because it allows him to deal 3 blows with 1 attack. That night, the redhead captive crawls into bed with our hero. He figures she must have been shaken up by the previous night's events. Things take a different turn when he wakes up and finds Gobme also in bed with him. Gabi, who's also been carrying all their gear, evolved into a hobgoblin as well. Gabru puts Gobchi in charge of their armored fighters, Gobme in charge of the long-range unit, Hubsato in charge of mobility-oriented and light-armored folks, and finally Gabi in charge of the chores unit. Hobsy is still the only mage amongst them, so she's sort of her own boss. Anyway, Gabru leaves the training field and heads up into the woods to seek out stronger prey. He comes across a tri-horn horse and attacks it using demise magic. A ball of blue essence emanates from his palm and he uses it to sever the head of the horse. This makes him so confident that he goes deeper into the northern woods. He sees a trail of blood and remembers that Gobji had advised them never to go that far because of a certain red bear. Sure enough, our boy comes across the bear and feels the urge to fight it. He puts down his bag as the creature growls at him and declares he wants to beat it and eat it. Gabru then shoots a spear of demise magic soon enough. The bear turns out to be smart enough to sacrifice its arm to protect itself. This makes the hero try cutting it down, but its skin is too tough. He tries to tie it up, but it easily breaks free and spreads fire everywhere. The bear attempts to limp away, but Gabru heals his arm and is stupid enough to charge through the flames, surrounding himself with water while he's at it. The bear spits even more fire, but our hero continues charging through until he successfully stabs the bear's throat. Unfortunately, he gets slapped into oblivion as a courtesy. Gabru breaks his fall with some water magic and stands up to fight, mostly because he never had bear meat before. He wields his partisan and stares down the red bear. Both parties then continue to clash and it all ends with someone losing a hand and the other losing a head. With the last ounce of strength in Gabru, he bites the hand that feeds him while staring at the severed head of the red bear. As his stats get buffed, the hero collapses. Luckily, he meets the conditions for evolution at that moment and gets a request to evolve into a rare ogre species. The hero returns to the settlement all tatted up with some red ink, his horns are golden, his hair is white and flowing, and honestly, he looks like the shit. Unfortunately, Gobme and the redhead think so too. They follow him everywhere until they arrive at the storage unit where the human girls are shocked to see this foreign macho god. Our boy gets a bit sad that they couldn't recognize him, so he does a few tricks before they ease up again. Meanwhile, Gobme is busy pinching his leg. Later on, the appraiser presents Gabru with a partisan she made and mentions that she made a knife using the spirit stone he gave her. He finds this interesting, so he rewards her by patting her head. Unfortunately, this makes Gobme and the redhead pinch harder on his legs. Up next, the twins complain about the cooking being too much for them, so our hero promises to give them 3 goblins as helping hands. While they celebrate, he quips that they would make great wives. It gets worse when he asks the Cook sisters to be his wives, and Gobmi carries the redhead on her shoulder just so they can hit Gobru on the head. Afterwards, he catches the alchemist making some poison, and she admits that it was for protection. She changes her mind about using it because of a hunk called Gobru. He then lifts her so high that she can't help but laugh. Our hero is lost as he admires her smile, but feels Gobmi and her colleagues staring daggers at him. This leaves the dude with no choice but to spend the rest of his time comforting the girls. The next day, Gobru realizes that he can no longer spar with the other goblins because they are weak AF. He spends his time healing the others, but Gobkichi's pride gets injured, so the goblin leaves to go to the gym. Things go on as usual, and the hero sits with Hobsy to do some knitting. She asks about his hand, and our hero admits that it's thanks to a slime he ate that he can use it. They then argue over a magic book that she refused to return. The next day, Gabi comes running in with a carbuncle covered in blood, and the hero helps her heal with potions from the alchemist. This creature, no taller than Kevin Hart, later wakes up and thanks Gobru for helping her despite their estrangement. She claims that her name is Returner, and that she was attacked because the gem on her head is worth 1 billion gold. The hero smells trouble, but before he can speak, Returner bows her head and pleads for his help in chasing off her pursuers. She reveals that she was artificially made by a mage named Velvet. That just sounds like the mage takes tea parties very seriously. Apparently, the humans have damaged her core really badly, leaving her with little time to live. Our boy deciphers that Velvet's treasury will be filled with legendary items that the mage gathered over the years. Returner then reveals that Velvet really disliked humans and would rather the goblins have his treasure than let humans near it. Plans change, and Gobru announces that they're headed to the treasury at that moment. The smith then hands him a spirit stone knife, and Gobru promises to chase off the humans before adding that he'll kill them if they don't run. They go through the wall Gabi had mistakenly created, but the hero has his team hide till further notice. He comes across the humans soon enough, but they look down on him so much that they attack. One of them enters stealth mode to swing his sword at Gobru. The hero easily catches it. He gives them a piece of his mind, calling them murderers and robbers. He even tries to play nice with them. Unfortunately, they all run towards him and begin to attack. He then notices the mages at the back. As they come at him, he sees it all as a feeble attempt and literally flings them away. Shit gets real when he gets struck in the head with lightning magic. This angers the poor goblin about to be rich goblin? Bottom line is that he's financially stable. He launches an attack and calls forth the rest of the team. They then beat the shit out of the humans and rob them blind. Gobru pulls out his spirit stone knife and joins his team to finish off their attackers. He takes a bite out of them and gains the abilities of the wizards and more. He then moves on to 6 magic backpacks capable of storing numerous items, and this gives him the ability to create a ginormous magic bag. Afterwards, they head to Velvet's treasury where they find the corpse of the mage still sitting. Returner returns to her master's shoulder where she gives a small lecture about Velvet's obsession with spirits. She then flies into Gobru's palm. There, she disintegrates, leaving behind her gemstone. The hero wastes no time in eating it and gains the ability of the Golden Order. Meanwhile, Gobkichi is busy simping over Gabi. For shame. They pay their last respects to Returner before stuffing the gigantic item box with all of Velvet's treasures. Afterwards, the hero cremates the corpse, leaving a strange gauntlet that he tries on his severed arm. Dude, this thing comes alive and literally digs into his flesh. He gets an arm complete with self-evolution and a blast spell, and doesn't hesitate to show it off to the other goblins with boring hands. They end up shutting the entrance to the treasury with boulders, and Gobru hosts a party with the loot. Day 38 is Inventory Day, and the day after that is Give Inexperienced Goblins Some Weapons Day. With the vermilion spear called Kazaklube, the magic bracelet called Solitary Fury, and his silver arm, Gobru comes to possess 3 legendary artifacts. These artifacts range from inferior to phantasm, and legendary artifacts sit pretty in second place. They gather ingredients for bear stew later on. The soldiers kill the prey with their improved skills, the sisters prepare the kill, and everyone sits to eat. By day 40, the hero pits all 15 hobgoblins against themselves and wonders if he should create a mercenary company. Gobru heads into the forest early the next morning to hunt. He kills and consumes a golden spider and wonders if he should use the golden silk ability he gained to become a fashion designer. Up next, our boy defeats a red deer with rose quartz for horns, and later comes across a wonderful tree with purple shade basking under the sunlight. He notices some half-naked ladies called dryads. Apparently, they seduce males of intelligent races and prey on them for nutrients. You'd be safe. Ain't nobody wants your dumbass. It takes everything in Gobru to resist the wiles of the dryad before him as she presses her juicy jugs against his bare chest. She licks his face, and it gets to the point where he can no longer resist her, so he activates his libido ability. His outburst causes a golden light to burst into the sky, and the sight of his third leg fascinates the dryad. Gobru crouches over her, and for 5 hours he breaks this pervert's back, leaving her more than satisfied after they're done. She bids him goodbye, so he heads to the river to wash himself clean. There, he gets attacked by a group of lizard men, which he easily defeats with his legendary arm. He gains some new abilities and moves on to face a raging bull, punching its head with his jolt counter technique. By day 42, they discover 2 goblins with magic abilities and transfer them to Hobbsy's team. Basically, she's cuckoo, so much so that Gobru is scared of what she'll do with these underlings. On the flip side, the hero learns to enchant items with magic, and this doesn't impress the smith. Godmi and the redhead become jealous, so an obvious Gobru asks around. He doesn't get an answer from anyone and even gets served poisonous food by the twins. He finally approaches the alchemist, who reveals that both girls are jealous of his dryad's encounter. He adds that he has hickeys on his neck, and this makes Gobru blush uncontrollably. She then kisses him and outright tells him to break her back too. He's still considering it when an outraged Godmi shows up. No, she's not mad, she actually wants to join them, and dude, she's not the only one. All of the other, ladies want a piece of the hero as well. Luckily, he's not a stingy person. That's right, he put up the golden curtain and fed all the ladies his seed. Such a valiant hero, I must say. Gabi stops Gobkichi from interrupting this encounter, and the hero promises to take responsibility for whatever happens. The Boo of the Booless awakes on the 44th day, and his search skill senses some intruders as he sits in his hammock. He later comes out and discovers that the visitors are elves. Proud elves. The hero can tell that these ones are going to be a pain in the ass. Their leader starts by calling the goblins savages, and he remains pompous even as he asks Gobru to help them fend off the humans. Gobji likes the pay that they're offering, but the hero blatantly turns them down. Their leader doesn't like this, so he seeks to draw his sword. Unfortunately, Gobru incapacitates him just